Dear audience, in the following topic, I will explain for you the dietetics of the atherosclerosis and cancer from the development and the prevention and the treatment. The main topic of the civilization diseases used to be the obesity and the type 2 diabetes, the atherosclerosis, and tumor building, getting older, osteoporosis, anemia, high blood pressure, and alcohol consumption. The today's movie is about the atherosclerosis and the formation of tumors. Of course, that in the everyday language we use cancer, but for a veterinarian and a medical doctor, this is clear that different form of tumors may be present. But the described phenomenon of the development and treatment are similar for all the tumors. But first see the atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is a formation of a plaque in the arteria, and owing to this plaque, according to the place, the spot of this plaque can form a heart attack or a problem, similar problem in the brain, a so-called stroke. Here you can see the picture of a atherosclerotic vessel, and you see that we have a lipid core under the subepithelial layer. And here you can see the infarct in the heart muscle. Here in this picture you can see the another players in this drama, namely they are the platelets and they are the red blood cells. They can form, participate in forming the plaque. How this plaque develop? You can see that step by step from the cholesterol, a plaque will be formed. The plaque will weaken the endothel, and this may have a tragical end. What is this cholesterol at all? This is a complex formation, and according to the ratio of fat and protein, lipids and protein, you can have low density lipoprotein and you can have high density lipoprotein. The dangerous so-called is the low density lipoprotein with basically lipid components, and the protein is only the B100 apoprotein. You have the cholesterol ester as the main component and phospholipids. The different species has different basic cholesterol concentration in the blood. In the rodents and ruminants, we have mostly high density lipoprotein in the blood. In the human and pig, you have low density lipoprotein. How this cholesterol, which derives from the food, and this is the first link to the diet. So the LDL cholesterol absorbed in the intestinal tract and will get into the blood. From the blood, it can be cleared up by receptor-mediated endocytosis. Here you can see the picture. The picture is that here you can see a LDL cholesterol, the previous picture upside down, with the B100 apoprotein and its LDL receptors, which can be found mostly in the RHS system of the liver, where if as a key and a whole can come together and will be moved into the cell, where the cell can, using its enzyme kits, split up the cholesterol. But if the number of LDL receptor is not sufficient, and this is genetic, in this case the clearing may be insufficient. It is a very interesting figure, the distribution of the blood cholesterol level in the human population. This is according to the old system, milligram, between 100 and 200 milligram per 100 milliliter blood, you have the normal adults. Below, this is equivalent to the today's normal value, namely 3 to 5 millimole per liter cholesterol. And you can see that below you have the animals and the human newborns, but you have another population, the familiar hyperlipemic heterozygote. They have at least 50% higher cholesterol concentration, and no great number, but 1 to 600 of the population, the familiar hyperlipemic homozygotes persons with practically no receptors, no LDL receptors at all. For the familiar hyperlipemic patient, we have only 50% of the LDL receptors received from mother side or father side. This genetic background can be very easily confirmed even in the old time. Today it's very easy by means of DNA analysis, but previously it was very easy to make the confirmation by giving a labeled LDL into the blood, and based on the biological half-time of the LDL, you can reveal the different genotypes. And you can see that in a healthy individual, so the biological half-time of the LDL is 2.5 days. In familiar hyperlipemic heterozygote, 4.5 days, and the familiar homozygote, familiar hyperlipemic homozygote, 6 days. Please remember that this is only one injection application of labeled LDL. But if you eat every day bacon and egg, this will remain higher and higher. And the formation of the plaque will start, and the cholesterol will accumulate on the intima of the vessels, and some macrophage goes and try to eat them, gulp them, but at the same time they will also degenerate and they turn into foam cells. And the plaque is ready, and above the plaque the intima is degenerated and weakened too. In this picture, the details, sequences in progression of atherosclerosis are summed up from the initial lesion through the fatty streaks, intermediate lesion, atheroma, fibroatheroma, and complicated lesions. And the first part is clinically silent, but the second part is clinically may be overt. I have told that we have not only the LDL, we have the high density lipoprotein with the higher protein content. And HDL cholesterol is beneficial and can facilitate a so-called reverse cholesterol transport from the blood and decreasing by this way the danger of platelet aggregation and infarct. So this is how the cartoon visualizes the two types of cholesterol, the bad, the LDL versus good HDL cholesterol. Okay. And here are the pictures of the necroscopy, and here I have to add that according to the pathology, the atherosclerosis is not other than a special type of arteriosclerosis, a hardening of the vessel's wall, which can be caused by the calcium and by cholesterol too. What about the dietary treatment and dietary prevention? The first of all, you have to eat more fiber and less animal fat. The fiber is effective not only per se by binding the fat, animal fat and the cholesterol, but it is also efficient by the volatile fatty acids which are produced by the fermentation of the microbiome in the intestinal tract. And the absorbed volatile fatty acids will enter into the cell's cholesterol transport. If you take attention to the lysine-arginine proportion of your diet, interestingly enough, this is the only case that during the human nutrition I can mention that the milk and the milk protein is not the best. And this is the only possibility, because the casein, the protein of the milk, has a different lysine to arginine proportion, and this is this may enhance the building of the atheroma. The soybean protein from this respect is better. Maybe this is only my personal opinion, that the China study and the results of the China study may be explained by this fact. You have to eat more antioxidants like selenium, organic selenium, and vitamin E to minimize the oxidation of the low-density lipoprotein. It was approved that not the LDL itself, but the oxidized form of the LDL cholesterol can cause the formation of the atheroma. Omega-3 fatty acids can be given, for example, by eating fish oil, which can improve the situation for the prolongation of the blood clotting. Remember the Inuit Eskimo population, they eat a lot of animal fat, but in form of like fish oil, and their blood clotting, the third factor in the formation of the infarct, is diminished in this way. You can help by eating biologically active plant compounds like the flavonoids in some plants and organic compounds of the garlic. The first flavonoids of the red wine, for example. And the last opportunity, if we have a genetic background, we can eat fat binder medicines peroral like guar gum and like the orthostat or lipostat or other similar trademarks. Here you can see a nice composition of different foods which are good from this respect in the prevention of atherosclerosis. But here is the list of the foods with high cholesterol to avoid: the egg yolk, not the egg white, egg yolk, liver, kidney, brain, and sweet bread or thymus of the different slaughtered animals. So this is only a critics that enjoy your meal. So the question mark is better. Food with low cholesterol, which are very good. The insects, a new line of the human nutrition. All type of the seafood like cod, mahi-mahi, halibut, tuna, salmon, trout, herring, mackerel, and busha. Busha may be the best because this is a vegetarian fish. White meat like the poultry, or the first would be the rabbit or the mangalitsa pork, is not bad, but without the fat. So the poultry can be eaten, but without the skin and the subcutaneous fat. And the egg white, but be careful because the egg white has a high sodium content, which is not beneficial in case of the hypertension. Only to see that all these plant products, seeds and berries and avocado are excellent from this respect, and you can see here that foods with no cholesterol are these vegetables, fruits, grains, cereals, nuts and seeds, and we have to add that more water and green tea are absolutely good. The number what you have to keep in mind, this is 200 milligram cholesterol intake per day, which is no more than 1 or 2 eggs, so be careful. So what more? This is a cartoon from a journal, American journal, March 1990. At that time, it was even that time a great part of the public discussion. And you see that the two scientists are seeing the consumer, the American consumer, which is a rat, and the new lines of the anti-cholesterol diet: fish oil capsule, lower cholesterol, decaffeinated coffee, oat bran as a fiber source, and sorry, dead end. So you have to follow the previous and you won't find a dead end. Diet and the building of the tumors, the development of the tumors. In the provocation of cancer, the environmental factors have a role in 80 up to 90% of the cases, and among those, 35% are nutritional factors. As a summarizing number, from 10 up to 60% of the cancer manifestations could have been prevented. And here I have to tell you that maybe that not everybody in the audience is old and don't feel as sensitive to the cancer cases. But be careful, because the mutation caused the cancer development can be unrevealed for 15 years. So you have to prevent the cancer of the later period of life today. The localization of the most important cancer types. And here you can see that in the civilized country you have mostly the cancer of the parenchymatic organs, like the mammary cancer, the colon cancer, and the prostate cancer. And as a local cancers, you can have esophagus and stomach cancer. The life organized a gigantic experiment. It means that the Japanese originated population in the United States. In the Japan, the parenchymatic cancer is not frequent because of the low animal fat intake and high fiber and vegetable intake. But in the so-called Western type of diet is frequent in the United States. But the third generation of the Japanese population in California moved from the esophageal and stomach cancer caused by the smoked sushi and other direct effect, and they develop more and more parenchymatic cancer. Frequency of important cancer types according to the WHO, the World Health Organization, are very similar in male and females. In males, the first is the lung, and the second is the stomach, and the third is the colon. In the females, of course, that not the mammary is the leading problem, followed by the uterus, but you see that after that we arrived also to the colon cancer. So this is similar. So which is not sex related, like the mammary and the prostate cancer in the males. The other are similar. I have to add also that the bladder cancer, which is present, this is also related to the smoking. So beside the diet, the smoking is a leading cause of the cancer. The exogenous factors first to see how to prevent. This is a very complex system, consists of individual, feeding, and population. In the individual habit, you have the smoking and the physical activity. In the population, you have the economical circumstances, the culture, and the society, what to eat and what is preferred. And in the feeding, we have to speak about the quantity, quality, the effect of the processing and the storage. So now we have to make your choice between the dangerous and the less dangerous foods. So the frequency of mammary and prostate cancer can be put in function of animal fat intake. And you can see on this picture that from 0 up to 180 gram of daily animal fat intake, and why you can see that what is the proportion frequency of mammary and prostate cancer 1 to 100,000 of the population. And you see that in some Asian countries where the animal fat intake is low, like the Philippines, Japan, Thailand, etc., the frequency is also low. And in the industrial countries like Netherlands, Great Britain, Canada, New Zealand, United States, etc., where Australia, where the food hygiene is highly developed, but at the same time, 100 up to 180 gram of the daily animal fat intake, we have a high frequency of the parenchymatic cancer. We have two differences, which is not in these regularities, the South of Africa and Israel. And maybe it is it is due by the differences of the statistics of the native population and the immigrants and the other population. So this is why this does not fit into this picture. The nutritional factors are the energy balance, the ratio of the major nutrients, the processing effects, the DNA modifying influences, the induction of activating and detoxifying enzymes, oxidation and antioxidants, and the direct toxic effects, carcinogens and toxic effects of inflammation. Effect of energy balance. We can see like energy surplus and energy deficiency. We can control through the live weight. If we eat energy in surplus, it will stimulate the insulin-like growth factor 1, the sexual steroids, and the growth factors, and all these are to facilitate the multiplication of the cells, and the multiplicated germ cells and the higher mitotic index gives place for more genetic failures during the copy of the DNA to RNA or the DNA replication. The energy deficiency diet will shrunken the genetic potential, but the chains of cancer cases like colon, prostate, and mammary tumors is much lower than in the energy surplus in industrialized countries. Yes. And now once more make your choice. Effect of major nutrients. The fat, if it's saturated, it is stimulate the parenchymatic cancer. Omega-3 fatty acids will decrease the incidence. And carbohydrates, by readily available energy, are also negative in this respect. In proteins, the animal plant has two phases because it's contained the active vitamin D, which decreases the cancer incidence, but and also the milk and butter contains conjugated linoleic acid. This is also anti-cancerogenic, but they will increase the insulin-like growth factor 1. So this is two-sided. The plants in this respect has no plant protein, has no influence. Composition of energy supplying foods in industrialized countries is meat and milk. See China study with refined sugar and fat. In developing countries, cereals, rice, vegetables, tubers and fruits, plant oils product. The processing has a great effect on fiber and micronutrients. The traditional is less and the modern processing is bad because it will increase the digestibility and decrease the micronutrients concentration and the dietary fiber. Generally, it will contribute to a hyperinsulinemia and the development of the type 2 diabetes. The diet can also modify the DNA by the vitamin B12 and folic acid level. And in this respect, the too high methionine intake of the diet is not good, and this is the reason that animal products, which are high in methionine and other sulfur-containing amino acids, may stimulate the cancer. And finally, the effect of induction of activating and detoxifying enzymes. So we have two scripts. One is that when reactive, potentially carcinogenic metabolite producing enzyme can promote the cancer building. For example, the cytochrome P450 activity increases the chance of tumor forming. Another xenobiotics and alcohols and drugs can enhance the activity of this P450. And the good beneficial script is the splitting of carcinogenic compound by detoxifying enzymes. You have a list of that. In this case, induction of this enzyme activity will decrease the chance of tumor forming. Oxidation and antioxidant. You see that similarly to the atherosclerosis, the too much oxidative burden, energy surplus, too much iron may participate to the cancer cases. The antioxidant compounds like the selenium, vitamin C, vitamin E, beta-carotene, phytoflavonoids from the garlic and the red wine can decrease the danger of cancer production. Here you can see the classical experiment with red wine derived resveratrol. You see that the control group without resveratrol intake and treated with benzpyrene on the skin, which is a very, very powerful cancerogenic compound, the mortality rate will achieve 40%. But with the parallel resveratrol treatment and according to the dosage, we can decrease to the zero the mortality, parallel to the benspirin treatment. Here you can see that who cannot drink red wine, you have some drops. The resveratrol can be found also in the flavan drops, and the garlic can be eaten in nature form. So the proposed in prevention, many websites and some blogs that use of germ extracts or berries drops. They are very good vitamins that not obligatory for these. Megavitamin doses, fasting, etc. Some yes, some no. I will return to that to the appropriate topic. So the last is the direct toxic effects, cancerogenic compounds, and the chronic inflammation. We have direct carcinogenic substances which are originally present in the food, or by the processing, like the benspirin of the overburning, or the nitrosamines by the smoking and by the sodium nitrate salt for the conservation will form nitrosamine, or by synthesizing in the inner metabolism as the N-acetoxyarylamide. This has a direct DNA damage by the cooking and the burning. And we have indirect effect by the direct irritation of the mucosa and producing inflammatory substances, and the inflammation-mediated cancerogenic effect of the smoking, heavy spirits drinking, salted, smoked, or over-grilled meals, hot drinks intake. They will cause mouth and pharynx and esophagus and stomach cancer. Over-summarized principles of tumor-preventing diet consist of balanced and even reduced energy intake, a decreased animal fat and red meat intake. Avoid the regular consumption of salty and smoky foods, ham, nut, chips, etc. At least daily regular vegetable and fruit eating, like the food pyramid, and avoid of consuming heavy spirits. So we don't have to get into the cancer paranoia, because this would be orthorexia and only eating only organic, and each meal is measured on a weighing scale. But generally you have to follow these rules, and I will finish with the picture of Renoir and the terrace, and or the breakfast of the rowing club. And you can see that they used an anti-cancerogenic diet with fruit, with cheese and red wine and physical activity. Thank you very much for your attention.